In Pompano Beach is the Florida Money Talk Network.
Here's the latest from ABC News. I'm Brian Clark. Another punishing day on Wall Street. The Dow plunging another 879 points. Investors continue to be concerned that the deadly coronavirus is not being contained overseas. Chief market strategist Art Hogan's with National Securities in New York.
Right now, since we're not at that point where we think the bad news has peaked, markets are probably going to be looking at economic activity that is not just slow for the first quarter, but into the second quarter as well.
All this exacerbated by a stark warning from the Centers for Disease Control.
The CDC's Dr. Nancy Messonnier says the COVID-19 or coronavirus is already spreading from person to person in other countries without direct connections to China, and it will happen here.
More of question of exactly when this will happen and how many people in this country will have severe illness.
The president already requesting several billion to help find a vaccine and prevent a U.S. epidemic. Andy Field, ABC News, Washington.
Details are being finalized for tonight's Democratic presidential debate.
7 candidates have qualified to participate in the debate sponsored by CBS News and the Congressional Black Caucus Institute. The optics of the nationally televised event are top of mind for the campaigns. A formula based on polling numbers and pledged delegates was used to determine the order in which the candidates will stand at their podiums. On the far left side of the TV screens will be former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg. On the far right, billionaire Tom Steyer. And right square in the middle, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Jim Ryan, ABC News, Charleston.
Harvey Weinstein's in a New York City hospital being treated for high blood pressure and heart palpitations, according to his lawyer. Weinstein admitted after being convicted yesterday on 2 sex crime charges. And our parent company Disney announcing Bob Chapek has been named Chief Executive Officer, taking over effective immediately from Bob Iger. Chapek most recently served as chairman of Disney Parks, Experiences, and Products. This is ABC News.
Balance of nature, changing the world one life at a time.
I was talking to a friend recently, and she said to me, your complexion is so good. It looks so healthy and just radiant all the time. She said to me, what did you do? I mean, the last couple of years, your skin has just been great. I thought, I don't know. And then I realized that's about how long I've been doing the balance of nature. And I told her that it had made enough of a difference that she was noticing it and wanted to know what caused it. So, I am super happy with it.
Don't wait to see what getting over 10 servings of whole fruits and vegetables every day can do for you. Right now, Balance of Nature is offering free shipping and 35% off on any new preferred order of fruits and veggies. Start your journey to better health today by calling 1-800-2468-751 or by going to balanceofnature.com, and make sure to receive this special radio offer by using discount code FRUITS.
In New York,
the opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teele. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teele, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info Show. I'm so glad that you could join us today. You might already notice that things look a little bit different on the set, and that's because we are live from Boca Raton on location at the Brooklyn Cafe show location in Boca. And so it looks a little different, but the show will be the same. And I am so glad that you tuned in because we have a wonderful guest today. This program is for caregivers, for non-paid family caregivers. So if you are walking in a caregiving path and feeling lost on that journey and not knowing which road to go down or which path you should take, or if things are working or if they're not, this show is for you, because we have experts that share their information, their knowledge, their expertise, so that you possibly can just be a little bit better and have a little bit easier time doing that caregiving that is so difficult to do. We know it's not easy. It's not something you learned in school, and so you learn as you go. And there are so many people out there wanting to help caregivers because they have a passion for sharing and for helping. And so if anything else, you should take away that you're not alone. And this show is for you and your family members, so they too can learn more about caregiving and different types of dementia, like Alzheimer's and frontal temporal lobe and vascular dementia. So we cover it all in different topics every week. So I'm glad that you're here, 6 to 7 p.m. every Tuesday, Eastern Standard Time. So my guest today is very special because she not only is a family caregiver, but she also is a daughter of a father with dementia, and she's written a book. So she's an author, and her book is all about her experiences. And I want to welcome Fern Pessin. Hi, Fern. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
I am so glad that you are here. It's a real pleasure that you're here today, and going to be sharing with everybody there all of the information and experiences that you've gained. So I just want to let everybody know that this is your book, and it's called I'll Be Right There.
Because we say that all the time.
And I can only guess why it's called that, because you probably hear that from the household when a person with dementia is calling out. The response is,
I'll be right there.
I'll be right there.
It's also the doctor calls for your parents. My specialty is parents, and doctor calls and I'll be right there. It's kind of like your kid in school getting sick. Your parents get sick, and I'll be right there. Your mother calls and they can't find the keys. I'll be right there. And I found myself saying that so many times, and my friends in other caregiver groups said the same thing. So it seemed like the perfect title for the book.
It actually is a perfect title. I really like it. So let's just get into this, because not everybody writes a book about their experiences, but what prompted you to do this? Was there any one thing that happened? And you want to share that, because I know that you lived away from your parents and they were down here, and something happened. You want to go ahead and share with us what happened?
So I grew up in New York, and I had moved to Connecticut. My parents were snowbirds coming to Florida, and we got to the point where we realized Dad and Mom shouldn't be driving back and forth between New York and Florida. And they moved down here. My sister and brother stayed up in New York, and I said, I'm the designated one, and I came down. There's usually one in the family who's designated as more helpful than the others. Mm-hmm. And when I got down here, things kind of got really crazy really fast, and I had to learn. I went to caregiver support groups. I went to a caregiver therapist. I started going to workshops, classes, conferences, which is where I met Marcia. And then I went on a retreat because I was losing my mind, and I went to Hippocrates Institute and met a bunch of people who were there recovering because they were also doing caregiving. And when I asked them, well, did you do this and have you done that? And they, oh my God, no, oh no, I didn't. How do you even know to do that? And I said, I don't know, I've just been doing what I do. And they, well, where's the list? Give me the list. Can you email me the list? So I started making a list. 352 pages later.
There's the list, right? So
that's the list.
You compiled it all,
yeah,
to be helpful to people that were going through what you were going through. And I think it's very comprehensive. I had a chance to, scan through the table of contents. It is topics that maybe you won't even think about that this is something we ought to think about.
Exactly.
So I think it is very comprehensive, and your style of writing is also very different because you actually write it the way you would talk to somebody. And I think it's very relatable that way.
It's conversational. I found books that were written by lawyers, books that were written by people that run programs that provide aids to people in their homes. There were plenty of books on finances and how to manage all of that. But when it came to what do you do when crazy stuff kind of happens that's in your family and not anywhere else, how do you deal with it?
The real life stuff.
The real life stuff. The things like, okay, Mom, you really shouldn't be driving anymore. How do you have that conversation without having your mom say, you are not the boss of me, which is what I got from my mother, the first approach. And so eventually I figured out how to have those conversations in order to get things accepted. I learned to communicate with my siblings and have them be part of everything, so it wasn't just me responsible. And it takes time to learn these things, so I said, well, if I can write this down and share it with people, then their learning curve will be smaller and they'll be able to be planned ahead and not have as much stress as I have. And the book is really meant to be a workbook. So there are questions and answers for you to fill in, so you can evaluate where your parents are and then what to do in each situation with wherever they are, and things to look out for, and so on. So it's really meant to be helpful and to reduce stress, because caregiving is stressful.
Yeah, very stressful.
Very stressful.
And you've had your share of it, and I'm sure even writing the book was a little bit stressful, so congratulations on its publication. So what got you here? Your parents are older, and things were changing, and your mom became a caregiver, is that right?
Well, my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in New York before they moved down here to stay. And my mother became his caregiver. She's a cancer survivor, and when she was going through her cancer treatments, my father said, okay, I'll take you into the city, New York City, every day and get you your treatments, and when I'm 83, you have to take care of me. And so for some reason, at 83, now she's, and now he's 86.
So they actually were caregiving for each other.
Yes.
Now, and that's a unique situation, but it's not so unique that it doesn't happen a lot, and we see that, right? Especially as our parents get older, and one might have a physical condition, the other one has more of a cognitive issue, and they rely on each other because they always have. They're married forever, right? And so you have the situation and it works, right, until it doesn't. And when things started going crazy, how crazy?
Well, there was the day that my mother looked at me and said, you're just trying to get rid of me so you can marry your father. And I was like, whoa, that was a surprise. And then revelations started coming up with things that happened in childhood. And so we started getting into a more emotional relationship based on previous and past experiences, and then the driving thing happened, and the ability to communicate with other people started happening, and then I got calls from neighbors saying, your parents are going to kill each other, they're yelling so loud.
So there's a lot of dynamics happening within the family, within the immediate family, and then with the extended family too.
Right, and neighbors, and everybody gets involved, and so I'll be right there. I'm coming right over.
I'll be right there.
I'll hear the help.
Well, we'll be right back because we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to find out some more of those stressful activities that Fern has written about and get into the nitty-gritty of what you can do to avoid some of those situations. So we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Welcome back to Caregiver Solutions Info Show. My guest today is Fern Pessin. She is an author, a daughter of a dementia parent, and also a caregiver herself. And she's here to share her knowledge, her experience, and expertise with a book that she has recently published, I'll Be Right There. And the book is a guidebook, actually, for adults caring for their aging parents. And it is not an easy thing, and congratulations to you for surviving so far, because parents can be difficult, right? And you're stepping into the role, and you're having to not always be the daughter. You're the caregiver now, sometimes for both your parents, right? Because mom is caring for dad, and dad's kind of caring for mom, and you have to oversee all of this. So one of the things in your book that you discuss is communication is key. And I think that is true of most situations, but in caregiving, it really is key. So what can happen when your parents who need your help aren't communicating with each other, with you, with your siblings? How hard is that?
I think that communication is the one thing that we can do so easily, and yet it's also very difficult. I had a conversation with somebody just yesterday who was trying to work with her sister, and she and her sister and I had a conversation about how to communicate, and yet her sister keeps running off and doing other things. I had another friend, she's lived in DC, her mother lived in Vermont, and the sister in Vermont was doing everything and not letting my friend know what was going on, and she was so stressed out all the time and frustrated because it's not like she loved her mother less than her sister, and she didn't always agree with what was happening. So knowing all of that, when I stepped into my role, that communication is so important, I made sure that my sister and brother were always on the same page with me. I feel like it's my job to keep them informed. And so when we started leaving for New York and I was selling my parents' apartment, I sent my sister and brother kind of, because I'm a writer, so this is easy for me, I sent them a little newsletter with what was happening, who was visiting the apartment, what we had, what the next steps were, who we spoke to, etc. And I kept that going. And to this day, I still send them after my parents go to a doctor's visit, which I take my parents to. I send my siblings an email, an update on what's going on. After we have an incident, somebody didn't make it to the bathroom, those kinds of things, I let my siblings know what's going on. If we're looking to do different things, like right now we're looking to get a reclining chair that the legs go up so my father's legs won't be so swollen and he can nap in the living room. My sister, who lives in New York, can help do research on that, and so she can be part of what we're doing. My brother, who's in New York, when he comes down to Florida, he installed a camera in my parents' apartment so that we could see if my dad fell. with my dad's permission. We didn't sneak that in, by the way.
Good to know.
Right, so his IT stuff came into play. And the whole point is that I need to recognize I'm not in this alone. My sister and brother do care, and they'll do what they can do. In some families, people just give money and say, you take care of it, and I'll send you a check. In other families, it's everybody's jumping in, and there are too many cooks in the kitchen, and that can get complicated. So what we want to do is try to come to agreement on how we want to move forward, not just my siblings and I, but also in my parents. Can I share one in particular?
Sure.
Okay.
You have a story?
I have a story.
We like stories.
Okay. So my parents were never going to leave their apartment ever. They were pretty set that they were staying in their beautiful apartment.
And that's what most older folks want. Right. They don't want to leave. They want to stay home, but sometimes home isn't the best place, right?
Exactly. Okay. So my job was to have my siblings on the same page with me first. So I started looking at different places that my parents could potentially live that had all the benefits that I knew my parents needed. I know my dad walks, so there has to be a place for that. My mother uses the pool, there had to be a place for a pool, and so on. When I found a few places, and my sister and brother and I kept talking, they kept saying, no, they'll never leave, they'll never leave. And then eventually, I talked to them about the fact that you have to do these things before somebody needs it.
Right.
And I said this is again is communication. So I said to my father, how would you feel if something happened to you and mom woke up and wasn't where she had friends and didn't know anybody and had no activities and she can't drive? Then she would be miserable, right? Do you want that? Because right now it's just the two of you and you have each other and you talk to each other all the time, but what happens if? And so we had that conversation with my dad, then my dad, my sister and brother and I had that conversation, then my mom got involved and we had that conversation, and then it was, okay, if you can find a place that has, you went down this list of places, then I'd be open to it. But at that point, it's not daughter Fern saying, you have to move, you can't live here anymore, get out. At this point, it's my father and mother saying, we're open to this. And then when they moved, and my dad, the first thing that happens when you move into a new place is you can get kind of depressed, and that happens, and so it's not unusual.
They moved into like an assisted living?
They moved into independent living. And the whole point was to move them before they needed assisted, before they needed memory care for the dementia. So they moved, and this way, when the dementia gets worse, they will be able to know how to get around in the hallways. They will know the faces of the staff. And it's not going to be, not only do I not know where I am and who I am, but I don't know any of you, and I don't know this house. I don't know how to get anywhere. So now they get into the routine. And that was what was really important. But again, it's the communication and letting everybody be part of it.
Absolutely.
And that's not, I recognize that it's not easy for every family to do that, but to strive for that so that like now my father's, when he's really upset about something like them not having a good hot dog in the cafeteria.
That's a big deal. Lunch is a big deal,
Food becomes really important. He'll say, I'm not mad at you, though. I decided to move here. This was the best decision.
Well, I think interesting that you said that because, we always say to caregivers, you need to make a plan. You need to prepare. It's important to do it before a crisis happens. So obviously, you're sending the same message. But something that you said I thought was really, really good because you have these individuals who don't want to leave their home and they don't want to do what they don't want to do. Yeah. However, they've been married, 60 years or so or more probably. And I heard you say that you talked to Dad that, what if this happened to Mom? Would you want this to happen to Mom? And then turn it around and say to Mom, would you want this to happen to Dad? So they might not recognize that they themselves need to make a change, that they need the help, but kind of put the the shift or the blame, if you will, that the reason you have to make these changes is for the other spouse, because they will do most times whatever it takes to take care of their partner, right? And so I think it was really interesting the way you did that, and I think it's a good way for a lot of families to do it when they become, there's a traffic jam, if you will. They hit a roadblock and they're not getting anywhere. So you can appeal to the emotions of the other spouse for the other spouse. And a lot of times it works out, and it did for you. So that was really good.
I think it's not just spouse. We have to recognize that a lot of times it's when one spouse passes away that the family says it's time to move
and that's
my mother or my father
situation.
Into a different situation.
Yeah.
So that becomes a more critical time, because now you're alone. You're moving somebody who's alone into a new place, and it's a new residence, new food, new activities, and a new everything. And that can be rather overwhelming. So if you do it earlier and have them be part of the decision, instead of getting to the point where maybe their acuity is not as much, or maybe their physical challenges are difficult. And so that communication it can also be about your children. Do you want your children to find you lying on the floor in a pool of, whatever? That sounds horrible, but it's reality.
It's reality.
And when you start, most of the parents that I know, when they think about being a burden to their families or their children or their neighbors or whatever, they don't want to do that. And so if you say, well, if we start now, before you actually need to be there, right? Mm-hmm. Before it's critical, before a hospital is saying, where do I send her? Then you can find a place that meets all your criteria where you're going to be happy.
Well, it's always good to get that parent to go willingly.
Yes.
And if you wait too long, obviously the cognition is worse, the dementia is worse, and they're not really able to make those decisions. But at the same time, they know what they want, what they don't want, right? Mm-hmm. So if you wait too long and you don't have their participation willingly, you're at the crossroads where now you're kind of forced to give a little white lie or a fib of why dad has to go into an assisted living, and usually it's hard for adult children to say those kinds of things to their parents. But if it's for their benefit and because that's what you have to do to get them to go, then you got to do what you have to do. But I think that your book stresses, let's get this all done before we get to that point. And each step along the way is going to have its challenges, right? It's going to have its heartaches and its challenges. But again, key is communication and key is planning.
Yeah, and there's also something to think about in when you look at a child, they get born, they become a toddler, then they go to school, then they go to high school, then they go to college, then they whatever. You don't communicate with a toddler the same way you communicate with a high schooler. And so when you look at going down the other side of the scale, when you reach middle age and then you get a little bit older and then you get a little bit older and you start losing some of your physical abilities or you start losing some of your cognition, you have to talk to people in a different way. But you can't talk to a senior the same way you talk to a toddler in a baby voice.
Nope.
You have to respect that they're an adult. So that's the other part of communication, is understanding that it's about embracing what we can do together, understanding each other. There's a tool. Have you ever heard of the 5 Wishes?
Yes.
Okay. Can I?
Yeah.
So the five wishes at 5wishes.org is a wonderful document that starts these conversations. So if you're thinking at some point I might need to stop the driving, move my parents, et cetera, or I have to make the home comfortable for somebody who's now in a wheelchair or needs a walker, and all of those things. You can start that conversation with this 5 Wishes document, which asks you, would you prefer this or this? how would you like us to recognize your, at the end, let's say later in life, so later in life, would you like, mom, dad, right? Would you like to be in a hospital, in the house, or in hospice? What's your preference?
And they're able to make those decisions early on so that everybody's on the same page, and then their wishes are respected and going forward, and you don't have to wonder what they wanted.
Okay, so great. On that, here's what happened in my house. I asked them these questions. My mother and father is sitting in the living room, and my mother says, in a hospital, of course. And my father says, at home, of course. And they looked at each other and went, you're wrong, because each one of them thought the other one wanted what they wanted. So that's what happens with communication.
And that was a great conversation, though, because it came out and you knew.
Exactly.
I mean, if you don't talk about it, you can't read everybody's mind, and that's the whole point. So take that note. We're going to go to commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to give away some free books. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live. It's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
At this time, I'd like to thank our national sponsor, Arden Courts Memory Care Communities. Arden Courts is a leader when it comes to memory care for people with all different kinds of memory problems, but they're also a great resource for you, the family caregiver. If you're watching and you are struggling and you don't have this book, it's called the 36-Hour Day Book, written by Dr. Peter Rabins and Nancy Mace. We're going to give it to you for free, just for the asking. All you have to do is call the toll-free number of 888-478-2410. Call them and tell them that you heard about this free book offer, the 36-Hour Day, on the Caregiver Solutions Info Show, and they'll be happy to get your name and address and make sure that they mail a copy of the book straight to you. It's a wonderful resource. You can read it from front to back. You can read it chapter here and there, depending upon your situation. But it has a lot of great tips, and it has a lot of explanations and things that caregivers really want and need to know. So call 888-478-2410 to get your free copy of the 36-Hour Day Book. So we're back, and my guest is Fern Pussin, and she is here because her role as a daughter in a family that's dealing with dementia and older parents, and she's written about it in her book, and we're talking about it today on the program, and that's it. You got to talk about it, and you know, it is so important to discuss these issues not only with our family, with our siblings, because you know, you grew up and you have a brother and a sister, but they probably have different ideas what they think mom and dad wanted or what they thought happened, and everybody has a different kind of twist on something, right? Totally. So you have to get everybody on the same page, and you're really good at keeping everybody in the loop, and some families have children that really don't want to know much about it, right? And so, but if you're giving them the information and maybe they're not responding, or maybe they are not truly understanding, I think by keeping them in the loop and giving them that information as things change, they're not going to be shocked or blame you when you have to have this big decision to go forward with your parents and make these tough decisions. So that is, again, really, really important. So speaking of big decisions, let's talk about, as your parents have been aging, and maybe, you know, they need a little more help than maybe what you can provide, maybe a little more help than what the independent living can provide. And it's time to have that talk about getting extra help, like an aid in the home. That's a hard conversation. Did you have to do that with your parents?
Yes and no. I had the conversation with my mother about getting an aid for my father when they were still living in their apartment, because my father shouldn't really have been left alone for hours and hours, and my mother was a busy person and had a lot of things going on.
So she thought he was okay by himself after
she knew he really wasn't. So I did, not everybody does this, but I went through a home health aid certification class so that I would know what to expect from an aide, which I then put in the book so you don't have to go through the class.
You actually took the classes and become certified.
I got certified.
I'm impressed.
Certified as a home health aide. And I secretly was going to the class so that I could find somebody that my father could approve of. Because this is the deal. My father doesn't understand accents. He has a bit of a hearing loss, but he can only understand if you talk like you're from Brooklyn or the Bronx.
And that's a pretty thick accent in itself sometimes.
It is, but he understands those accents. He doesn't understand. We have a lot of wonderful, wonderful caregivers, paid caregivers that are from all these different countries, you know, whether it's Russia or Haiti or any of the
different islands,
the islands, everything. We have so many different accents. So my father is always, don't bring anyone in here that I can't understand. So I went through this class looking for somebody with the right accent.
So you were undercover.
I was undercover. I wanted somebody that I could trust because I know how they did in class, and I wanted somebody who didn't have an accent. So I met a guy who was perfect. He was former military. My dad's a Navy man, so that worked. And he was a fix-it guy. So here's the trick, folks. You don't bring in an aide. You bring in a computer technician. You bring in a housekeeper. You bring in a cook. You bring in, what I did was a handyman. So
love it.
We had, this gentleman came once or twice a week, and we had so much stuff that needed fixing, between painting the dining room, the outside tables, and cleaning the outside furniture, to doing laundry, to painting the hallway.
So this person actually did the chores?
He did the chores. He got paid a lot more than an aide did, and my father didn't know he was having an aide. He just was, oh, Dennis is okay, you know, just let him do.
So the point was there were eyes on your dad.
Right. So when Mom and I had to be out, because I was driving her, we had somebody in the house. And funny how Mom always had to go somewhere when Dennis was showing up.
That was her chance, really. And that's good, because she probably needed a break, too.
That was totally why we did it.
Yeah, she needs a break. She needs respite. Caregivers need to take breaks.
Exactly.
So good that you were there. But that's a wonderful story. And I've heard stories like that from other caregivers, where they bring in a friend. And it's not a companion, it's not an aide, but it's somebody that is new in the neighborhood. And hey, they like to play cards too.
Right.
So you want to get together and do things together and go places. And it just makes that person who's still yet higher functioning, but maybe you're not 100% convinced that they wouldn't get themselves in trouble, to have somebody right there keep that eye on them. Because if there was a situation, your handyman could call 911. Your handyman could take care of it.
Well, we knew we needed it when we found hard-boiled eggs on the ceiling in the kitchen because my father forgot they were on the stove. So, that's the kind of thing that gets you starting to
That was
think.
the trigger, right?
That was the, maybe we don't want to do this. And that was also when we put the camera in so that we could see if he fell coming out of the bathroom and so on. The other thing is that you might want to bring your parent to adult daycare before you move them somewhere else. It'd be nice for them, especially if they live alone, to have adult daycare. And if your parent is saying, or your partner is saying, I don't want to go to adult daycare, I'm not a child, I don't need a nursery school teacher.
And they will say that.
They will say that. You can suggest that, but that they really need volunteers. Could you come and volunteer? Could you help sit and talk to somebody who's lonely? Would you be able to do that for us?
Give them a reason, give them a purpose,
Yes. And I think it's, look, for me, I believe that every corporation that has a daycare should also have the ability to bring elders and let the elders take care of the little kids. To me, that seems like a solution, but it's not policy yet. And so when I asked my mom to go to check out the adult daycare, she went there as a volunteer and she did some filing and she went and sat with people, and then, she liked the activities going on over there.
So I think I'll join in because I like to play bingo.
I want to sing.
Yeah.
Let me go sing.
And that's a perfect way to do it because then they have a purpose. They don't feel like they're being babysat. And
it's fun.
And it's fun.
And they make friends.
And they get the socialization.
Exactly,
and
which
the
is so
stimulation.
important.
Yeah, very good point, good point. So these are steps along the way as you're dealing with aging parents. And Fern has written a book called I'll Be Right There, and talks about in her book all of these types of things so that you don't have to be an undercover daughter or an undercover son. I still can't get over that. I just love that. But you went to, you did whatever it took, right, to do it. And you've put it in the book so that other people don't have to go through the hardships, the trials, the tribulations. Now, of course, every case is different. Every family is different.
Totally.
And it's totally a guide. And things can, go wonky sometimes. But the more that you learn, the more that you get educated and read and talk about these things, the more prepared you'll be, and then the easier it will get, right? So that is great. I love the stories about the hard-boiled eggs on the ceiling because, again, sometimes people say, well, how do I know when it's time, right? And you're looking at these things and you say, well, that's not normal, right? And if things aren't normal and they're doing things that wouldn't be normal for them, then you need to adjust, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's normal to forget, where did I put my keys? Where are my glasses? Oh, they're on top of my head, that kind
We all do that.
We all do that kind of stuff. But when you're driving around in some place that was 10 minutes away is now a 3-hour drive because they can't remember how to get home, or if my father tried to turn on the microwave with a TV remote, those kinds of things are behaviors that you say, okay, now we're getting into
some safety
issues, right? And you want to get there before things like falling in a shower become commonplace or slipping. In our situation, there was beautiful ceramic tile floors, and my father's on Coumadin, and if he falls, it's the chance that he's going to bleed internally.
Yeah, not good.
So is your home set up to be able to accommodate what's going on?
Right. And there's resources. I mean, there are so many people out there willing to help, which is a segue to our next topic, real quick, is the stoic caregiver or the stubborn caregiver or the martyr caregiver.
Big one.
Right? So when someone's caring for their spouse or their, in this case, I just recently was introduced to a lady whose daughter had early onset Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And the daughter was only 65 years old, and her mother was the one looking for help for
Amazing.
the daughter. So
Amazing.
you'd never know, who is going to be a caregiver and who's going to need help. But nonetheless, the point is, when you know about a caregiver and you want to offer help and you say, what can I do? Or how are you doing? I think the pat answer is, oh, nothing, we're fine, right? I mean, that's what they say, because I think a lot of people don't like to share all that personal stuff that's going on, and if they think that we're fine, they can do it themselves. But the point is, they can't always do it themselves.
Well, you also get the situation of people saying, if you need anything, just let us know.
Yes.
Or, what can I do for you? Let me know. Bye.
Yeah.
As they're driving away, let us know, and they're gone. So the little tip and trick.
Yeah. It's both, actually. It can be both.
Is to take everything that you do in a day for your parent, your partner, whoever, and make a list of it, break it down by time. And when you get to that minutia level, you can then assign things and ask people to help. So when somebody says, well, can I do anything to help? Well, as a matter of fact, I need these few things at the next time you go to the grocery store. If you wouldn't mind picking these up for me and dropping them off on your way back, that would be a really big help. Or can you pick up my dog at the groomer, or drop my dog off at the groomer? Or can you sit with my person so I can take a shower and wash my hair, please? I put a movie in, all you have to do is sit there. And as long as you're not asking somebody to take someone to the toilet or give them a bath or do something like that, and you keep it to a specific time frame and a specific day, that will make people, oh, sure, I can help anytime.
Yeah, because they said, I can do that.
I can do that.
I can do
Right.
that. I can sit. I can sit for 20 minutes. I can run errands for you. And I think that is great advice, because people don't know what to do. They don't know what
Right.
somebody needs.
Right,
and
right.
sometimes people are just afraid to ask. They feel like they're imposing. They don't want to put anybody out. But you need your team. You need that support system.
Totally
And
need a
you
team.
can't do it by yourself. You cannot take care of someone with dementia by yourself. And if you try, you're going to be the one that's down and out, and then you're going to need a caregiver.
The statistic is 65% of people caring for someone else get more sick or die before the person they're caring for. And I've watched this happen to my
So have I.
parents'
I've seen
friends. It's amazing. So, the old airplane thing with the mask, you
Right.
have to take care of yourself. And it's really hard to do that because you feel guilty that you're not doing what you should be doing, but you have to do it. So if somebody offers help, take that help. If you need to have a list of people. This is again about being prepared in advance. You need to have who are the pet sitters, who are the handyman, who are the plumbers, those kinds of things, because when something happens, I'll be right there. You need to pick up the phone and call those people and say, can you go over and handle that? Because maybe you're at work, maybe you're on a phone call, maybe you're in a meeting, and
Maybe you're sick.
Maybe you're sick, and you can't handle everything yourself. So you need exactly what you were saying, Marcia. You need a team. You need to look at, and I tried to make a list of all the people I thought would be helpful and handy to make that team together, so that once you have all that information, your life is, I know who to call.
And that's great, because you actually put the list in the book. So there are things that people wouldn't even think of. Oh,
Right.
yeah, I never would have thought about that.
Right.
My husband used to unclog the toilet or unclog the garbage disposal, but now he
A
can't.
locksmith, when your wanderer goes out of the house and lets the door shut.
You need a locksmith. You need the plumber,
Right,
because
right.
the person who always did that can no longer do
Right.
that anymore. So you need to arm yourself with all of these resources, and that's what it's all about, is having the resources and doing it. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with more from Fern Pesson, and I'll be right there, and we'll be right back.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Welcome back to Caregiver Solutions Info Show. I'm with Fern Pessin. She is a daughter, she is a caregiver, and she's an author. And she's here talking about her book that's just been published. It's out now, called I'll Be Right There. And it is about, how many pages?
352.
352 valuable pages with all kinds of information that you, if you are a caregiver, would want to know, because Fern's already walked in your shoes. She's already experienced a lot of the things that people will go through, and she's put it all together in a book, and it is available, and you can go to Amazon and get her book, and it is actually FernOnAmazon.com.
Take you right to that page.
They'll take you right to the page, Fern, F-E-R-N, on Amazon.com, and the book is called I'll Be Right There. Now, if you would like this book right now, and you're the first person to call the number that I'm going to be giving out, we will make sure that you get your free copy of I'll Be Right There. So all you have to do is call 888-478-2410, 888-478-2410. Tell them that you would like the I'll Be Right There book by Fern Pessin. And if you're the first person, we'll make sure that we get that out to you. And if you want to give your email address, if you're not the first person, because only one person can be the lucky one, give your email address. And there is a reprint of one of the chapters in the book.
On communication.
And it's on the communication, which we've been talking about today, which is really important. It's really key. And this is a reprint of that chapter on communication that Fern is willing to give to you absolutely free, just by providing an email address. And we'll be happy to get that to you as well. And thank you for that, Fern. You are a wealth of information. You have been there, done that. You wrote this book, but your background was writing more technical trade type of publications, right? So you had a little bit of experience in the writing field, and lo and behold, you never thought that you would be writing a book on caregiving, did you?
No, and actually I help other people write their memoirs, so I don't know how, but I wound up doing this because people needed help.
Well, you never know where life is going to take you.
Right.
And there's one other thing I'd like to mention before our time is up. Speaking of taking us places, you are actually on a committee for the, I'm going to read it so I make sure I get the words right, the Dementia Care and Cure Initiative for Palm Beach County. It's a task force.
Right. The DCCI is a state task force for Florida.
And what's the purpose of that?
The purpose of that is to try to make Florida, which has more cases of Alzheimer's than anywhere else in the country, a dementia-friendly community, meaning that if you are bringing your person with you to a restaurant or for a haircut or out in the street or anything, people will understand the difference between somebody with Alzheimer's versus maybe somebody who's a little off because they're on drugs or they're drinking or something like that, so that you can be helped, that you can find a safe space.
And that's really important because, caregivers don't want to necessarily hibernate. They want to continue to do as much as they can to keep things as normal as possible.
Exactly.
And go places, but all these places need to be aware and need to be educated. Now, already in Palm Beach County, the firefighters have been educated, the police officers have been educated, EMS, so that they can understand the difference between someone who has dementia and, like you said, someone who is on drugs or maybe drunk, and not necessarily arrest those people and take them to jail, because it's unfortunate that in the past those kinds of things have happened. And so this task force that you're on is just kind of getting started. You're getting your work beginning, and I want to ask you to keep me updated.
I will for sure.
As we go along, because it is important. I know a lot of people have those little cards that they can give to a waiter at a restaurant that says, the person I'm with has memory loss, so it's a way to keep the dignity intact of the person that has the dementia, so that they don't get frustrated, so that they don't get embarrassed when they can't order something off the menu, or when they can't use their utensils correctly at a dining table.
Or my friend's mother, who's an opera singer, stood up in an Italian restaurant and started belting out a song. And then when her daughter was embarrassed and said, come on, we got to get out of here, she was going, thank you all for coming.
I love that. But you know what? Sometimes you have to just go with it. I mean, seriously. Now, when she did that, what was the reaction of the patrons in the restaurant?
There was a lot of stunned looks. But I think the point is that if the staff is trained and understands what's going on, everyone can laugh about it and just say, okay, it's no problem.
Right.
We understand.
Right, we understand. And that's what it's all about. Understanding, care, compassion, doing our part, whatever our part is, whatever your part is, whether it's taking care of someone with memory loss, whether it's writing a book from your experiences, whether it's just saying, hey, can I make dinner for you tonight? As a neighbor, can I sit with your person so you can go to the hairdresser? We all need to do our part.
I think if everybody said, I'm going to commit 1 hour a month to helping somebody who's taking care of someone else, whether it's a child, a dog, whatever, then imagine the world. Imagine what a great place it would be if everyone just said, 1 hour, I'll just help somebody else.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I think it would make a huge difference. And we have so many wonderful professionals that have a heart for what they do.
Totally.
We have caregivers, we have aides, we have nurses, we have doctors that have a heart, but there's never enough. There's never enough. And I think that, joining together like this and making the world an Alzheimer's, dementia-friendly environment is a goal that, we can only hope to achieve.
Well, my father has it, which means that it's in the blood. So I'm looking out for me.
I'll be your friend. Don't worry, I'll still be your friend if that comes. But I want to thank you for being here today.
My pleasure.
And sharing all of your experiences in the book, I'll Be Right There, by Fern Pessin. And I want to thank you for tuning in today and being with us as well. Don't forget, next week, same time, same location, we'll have another wonderful program. In the meantime, don't forget, give somebody a hug because they need it and so do you. We'll see you next time. Take care.